Hello, my name's Dan Humberg. I represent harvestfires.com. Um, this video is a introduction to the tin set for a Firestop kit on a case model 8230, 9230, or 9120 combine. The tin set we're showing here will fit any of those three models. The engine is pretty much the same, and the exhaust systems are similar. There's one difference for the 9120, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. But um, what I'm showing you is the CAD model, the computer-aided design model that was used for to create the tin pieces for this kit. And I can show it inside the CAD program here and rotate it around. So we're going to step through the individual pieces of tin in the kit and talk a little bit about what you'll encounter in putting them on, and maybe some tips as to how to make that an easier process. In the CAD model, each piece is given a slightly different color so you can see it more clearly. Otherwise, they can do the same kind of thing if I had a fully assembled set of tin on the bench, but it's a lot bigger and more unwieldy. Here I can rotate it any direction I want, and we can look at the different parts of the tin. So we'll step through this, and this isn't the only video. There is a video with how to fold the individual pieces of tin for this model, and I recommend that you watch that and use that in terms of knowing how to fold each tab on the individual pieces and how to make them fit closely together. But this shows how they mate together and makes it easier to talk through it. So let's start. Um, I'm going to start with this, the left end. The exhaust manifold fits under the top portion of this. If we look from the top like this, your engine would be up here. You'd be looking down on the valve cover. The manifold is on this side. The turbocharger exhaust turbine is right inside this area here, and then your exhaust pipe comes out of here and goes up and will come up right up to essentially the, let's see, is it the muffler, or is it, I think there's an elbow up here where it turns a corner, and we come up just short of where that corner is made. Um, each part in the actual tin kit now has a number cut into it, usually cut into a flange somewhere. And so you can identify the individual parts. I don't remember the individual part numbers for this, so I won't try to refer to them. But generally, when you're going to put on the tin, you're going to start with this piece underneath here. It's going to go underneath the manifold, and and it fits. There's actually some tabs on the back of it here that don't seem to be shown at this in this particular. Well, maybe they are too. I'm not sure. Anyway, it will rest on the top of a casting ledge that's on the block. It runs the full length of the block here. It's a kind of I call it a casting boss, but it's kind of a raised square uh, ledge, and this piece will sit on top of that ledge, and then there is a raised boss on the block that has a tapped hole in it. In the 8230, 9230, these models, that hole is not used for anything else, so it's an open tapped hole, and that's what we've used it here. There's this L-shaped bracket that you can see here that will go on with 4 screws. I'm not sure, you might be able to put it on this piece and then fit the piece in place, or that may not work because it's a real tight space. We have the exhaust or the compressor turbine here and the airline leaving that here, and so it's a pretty tight space. But you might be able to screw that piece on and then bring this whole highlighted piece in underneath here, and it will sit on that casting boss ledge, and then this slotted hole will line up over the top of that threaded hole, and you can use an 8mm an 8mm bolt and a washer to hold it on. I wouldn't put it on tight till the end of the installation, but you can put it there to hold it in place. So we put that piece in place, and then the second piece that I would put on is actually this long one, the mating piece to that. That one slides in from under the right-hand side, and it slips just on top of the flange from this one. And there'll be 2 holes under there that will line up. They're pilot holes cut through, and they should line up so that you can reach underneath with a little tiny screwdriver and the square drive screws and put these 2 screws in place to link those 2 together. On the right hand end of this one is another tab. This is similar to the left hand end. There's a raised boss and the casting down here that has a tapped hole in it. This one is a ways down, and you will have to put this piece on after this dark blue piece is up in place, because I don't think you can snake them in place when the two of them are assembled. But once that's on there, once the blue piece is in place and screwed onto the first one, you should be able to screw these 4 screws and put that L-shaped bracket on the bottom piece here, and then again the slotted hole will line up over a hole in the casting casting of the block that has a threaded hole in it that you can put a bolt through. Again, an 8 millimeter bolt and a washer will hold that on. With those two in place, the next piece is this one here. That once you've bent it up according to the other video that shows you how to bend each individual piece, it will fit over the top of the other one. It'll actually rest. It has a tab that will rest. You can see there it highlights the tab or the piece. So you can, well, maybe there it's highlighted. There's a tab on the inside, and so these screws come from underneath um, and screw that this bottom piece up to this chunk. Similarly, once you have that done, you can come to the other side, and there's another piece that wrap around. It'll go all the way around from here, around this end. That piece that's highlighted there. Let's get that center screen for you. There, that chunk. And with that in place, you put that one on. You can screw that one on from underneath here as well. So the two are attached. And then we can go to the wrap around the turbocharger. There are 4 pieces. This side has 2 pieces. There's the highlighted top one. That's probably the one I'd start with. It will slip inside of this flange, and you can put a screw through the top here pretty easily. This one down here is designed to go in from this side. The larger hole is the first hole that the screw goes through, and then it should bite into the back piece. So this one's designed to go in from this side. That may or may not be reachable for you. You may be able to reach it with a long screwdriver, but it may be a challenge to get that one in. This one should be easy at the top. Once that one is screwed on, you can bring the bottom half of this up from underneath and slip it inside of the gold colored one here. And then you can both put a screw through here, through that tab, and there are holes here and here and here. Those holes are designed to have the screw go right to left from the inside out rather than from the outside in, because you won't be able to reach these screw holes because the compressor turbine is in the way here. But you can shoot a screw from the inside right past the exhaust turbine and catch at least one of these, and possibly the one in the back with a long screwdriver as well. So you put that pair together on that side, come around here to this side. Oops, sorry. And there's the highlighted piece. That's the top half again. It's kind of a matte mate to the one on the other side. That will slip in here, and there are, let's see if I can see it. Yeah, there are 2 screws. This one and possibly one down at the bottom here that will allow you to put that together. Slip it inside this flange, and we should be able to shoot a screw through this flange here and catch that gray piece. Once you have that one on, come underneath, and this light blue one that's mostly covered up here, but if I highlight it, you can see it. That one will slide in from the bottom up, and you can put a screw through here, and I think there's one up in here that you might be able to reach, and there'll be one in the back here. Perhaps this one catches it. The one on the bottom of that flange will catch that one. That actually might catch 3 pieces of tin. Anyway, it only takes a couple of screws to hold that one in place for now, because we got a bunch of screws that are going to tie it together later on, or actually very soon now. Once these 2 sides, the left side and the right side of the turbo box, are assembled on there, then you have this long piece, this wrap. bright orange light colored piece here. Once that's all bent up and you bend it to approximately the shape of the side of this thing, kind of an octagon-like shape, it will slip under from the right side under, and there's a tube that runs under here, so it's a little tricky to slip it in there, but it should slip in. And this hole is there to slide around the pressure line that lubricates the turbocharger bearing. It's a steel line, but there, hopefully we've hit the right spot with it, and it'll go up through that hole. Now you want to have some clearance around that pipe, so you test fit it on there and make sure that you're going to have clearance around that pipe when these screw holes line up. If you don't have enough clearance around that, you may need to enlarge that hole a little bit. It also helps to bend the edges of that opening. I would bend these down so that they're parallel to that pipe and almost perpendicular to this bottom face, so that they're smooth where they parallel that pipe. So if there's ever any contact with that pipe, you don't risk abrading it or rubbing on it to the point where you'd ever rub through that pressure line, because it's a soft steel line and it supplies oil to the turbocharger bearing, but that's engine oil. So if you rub a hole in it, you're going to lose the engine oil. So we don't want anything that rubs on that. So I usually like to have a little clearance around there and make sure that the edges of this hole are parallel to that line rather than perpendicular to it. This larger hole is for the return line from the turbocharger bearing. It's a larger pipe that comes down and drains that oil away from the bearing. So again, there should be space there for it, but if this comes too close to that pipe, you can certainly bend the edges of this. You can cut little fingers here if you need to bend it down and bend it down away from that, so that it's smooth where it would be close to that pipe and not rough or have a rough or sharp edge contacting it. So you test fit it until you know you've got clearance there. Then you can slide this piece in place. Um, you can put a screw or two through here if you want. What you really want to try to do is get through the back and get screws from the back side or underside. I'll rotate this around. Hang on just a minute while I get this oriented. There. Now you can reach underneath this from the right hand side and reach back here, and with the little palm driver you can put screws in those holes from the back and tie that on. Once those are on, the piece is in place, you should be able to put screws around underneath here. The more you get, the more this lines everything else up, and so you can continue to put screws through all the way around this piece. Again, I'll wrap it around or bring it around here to where we can see, and just keep putting screws in and wrapping this around all the way up to the top here until it ties on to the actually it'll end up overlapping the top piece. At some point here, I guess you could have done it before this as well. You could put the top piece on. Once the left side and right side pieces here are in place, and the left side and the right side of the turbo cover are in place, you can put the large top piece on, and it will screw down to both sides with screws here, 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 here on this one. And also, then this wrapper on the turbo will lay over the top of that blue top piece and screw down here and here as well. So that's pretty straightforward to put that on there, and then it will fit. This fits pretty good on this model. And the only thing we have left then to do is to cover the rest of the exhaust pipe. And that's done with 4 or 5 pieces here. This large blue piece, once it's folded into the right shape according to the video that shows you how to fold them, you can slip it. I think I usually wrap it around from the bottom, around the exhaust pipe until it wraps around, and you can it'll come over the top here, and if you get it bent correctly, you'll start to get holes that line up on the sidewall of the turbo cover. Your key to having it in the right position is these tabs. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble getting this oriented. There we go. These tabs that are tapered or smaller than the rest of the tabs will kind of line up to follow the edge of this housing, and that'll tell you when you've got it in the correct position or not. Once those are lined up with this and this bottom one here, then you can start putting screws into these tabs and pull it up tight against the face of that turbocharger cover. When you get the big blue piece on and screw down all the way around there, and there's there are two pieces to cover the front. I'll highlight this one. It's a smaller piece, but it's shaped like, well, just like you can see there. And it will overlay the top of the blue piece there and down here, and also have two tap flanges that butt up here against this face. You can put those screws in and put at least one here and one down here. And now's where it makes a difference whether you're doing a 30 series or the 9120 series. If it's an 8230 or a 9230, you have to fit this around the def injection port. And when I highlight the lower piece, you can see the cuts that have been made on that to accommodate the lower part of the def injection port. If I highlight the upper piece here, you can see the irregular cut that will allow it to wrap around and under the heat shield for the def injection port from the upper side. So if it's an 8230, 9230, this piece, you may actually have to tuck some of those fingers. These I can't point the cursor to them or they'll go away right now. But those highlighted finger cuts on the right hand end, you push those down and tuck them underneath the heat shield on the def injection port before you'd screw this piece on. While it's still loose, you have to tuck those underneath there. And then you may have to cut a little bit deeper than some of those are cut, but I hope that they're deep enough that you can fold them down a little bit, tuck them under that heat shield, then fit the piece in place and screw it on. If not, you may have to deepen those cuts a little bit to make those fingers a little longer so that you can bend them from a little farther back. But the idea is to get most of the air to go underneath that heat shield and keep moving up along the exhaust pipe. Once you have that piece on and in place, you're going to add this next, I don't know if it's blue or gray piece, call it gray, from the upper side, and that will tuck under the heat shield from the upper side. That one's easier to do. You can bend those fingers on the bottom in a little bit and they'll fit underneath there, and the rest of this should slide in place pretty easily. And now you can put screws through up here on the top to this blue piece and on the bottom as well under here into the blue piece, and then continue on and connect the rest of these together with, or put the rest of them in place with your screws on the top. This patch over here, this cover, is only if you're doing a 9120 because that doesn't have def injection. It's just a straight exhaust pipe in there. But we're using the same parts and we just have this patch that goes over the top of that area and screws onto the other pieces. It's pretty straightforward to patch that over there and it will cover that hole up so that we have a pretty much tight tube following the exhaust pipe up here. Once we've done that, we can slide along here and we have two more pieces that wrap around. One that will wrap kind of underneath. That's this kind of light blue piece. And it will fit around a support bracket that supports the exhaust pipe in here. It won't fit completely tight around there, but it will come close. And then once you have that one wrapped around, you can bring actually you can put a screw through here to hold it on and another screw back here to hold it on the bottom. Leave the whole screw holes on the sides for now until we bring this or yellow goldenrod, whatever we call it, this piece around from the top, and that will wrap over the top of the other pieces. Slip inside the blue one down here, and you can screw it on here. I'll probably start at the top here and here, back here. So it's screwed onto the lower assembly first, and then you can force it a little bit and these holes will line up and you can get screws through those and pull the two together. Similarly here on the back side, you can reach behind and put screws through these holes and pull this whole thing together. Some of these catch more than two pieces. These catch these two, and these down here we catch all three, I think. There is a bracket or a clamp thing. It's kind of a clamp that holds the pipe onto the bracket, I think, that sticks out through these side holes. And you will have to bend this open, slide it on, and then bend it down closed in order to make that fit around that piece that sticks out this side and another piece that sticks out over here. And then you do that when you're fitting it on, but once you fit it on, these holes should line up and you should be able to get the screws on that hold it together. And that will force the air to come all the way up this tube, just short of where the pipe turns the corner and goes back towards your catalyst for the DEF injection or DEF stuff that's now in the been squirted into the exhaust pipe. But by the time we reach this point, your exhaust is down to a temperature where it no longer is high enough to make this pipe hot enough to exhaust dust, to ignite dust on contact. Back down here, up to the point where you're injecting the DEF or the diesel exhaust fluid, I think this whole system is hot enough to ignite dust just about on contact as it's blowing through that area. When we inject the DEF here, that immediately vaporizes in this exhaust stream because it brings it up to temperature so quickly. And so within a few inches of being squirted in there, that DEF is probably evaporated, and that pulls a whole bunch of heat out of the exhaust to cause that fluid to evaporate, and it drops the temperature of the exhaust. So it starts to become low enough that we don't need to worry. But I like to protect this pipe all the way up to that corner anyway. So that's the assembly of the tin for the 8230, 9230, and 9120. We do have the hole on the top here where your entrance is, and that's a stub entry piece for like a HVAC fitting that slips in there, and there's some fingers that bend out on the inside, and you leave a few on the outside and screw it down. And then there's a 90-degree elbow that goes on top of that and either bends left or bends right. And you got a rubber elbow then that will go from there out over the top of the valve cover and connect onto an aluminum tube that goes out towards your fan and blower and all that stuff. That's illustrated in another video, but that's how to assemble the tin kit for an 8230, 9230, or 9120 Firestop kit. Now, I always give this caution on the end of any video that while this will lower the risk of fires from the exhaust system on your combine tremendously, I can't guarantee that you'll never have a fire. You could have a fire from a spark thrown by a failing alternator, by another electrical short somewhere, or from a hot bearing anywhere on the machine, or from uh, friction somewhere. There are many things that can cause fires on the machine, but essentially once the Firestop kit is on there, you'll probably find your machine behaves a lot more like you're harvesting wheat than it does, or corn, than harvesting sunflowers. So good luck with your installation. If you have any questions, you can send a message to me. There's a place to do it from the website at harvestfires.com, or if you can remember harvestfires at outlook.com, that will also get a message to me if you have a question or comment. Good luck with your kit.